Good day, student. My name is Edo Triumph, your contact tutor for Computer Studies 2. I welcome you to this exam-based presentation. I'm going to be your guide throughout this presentation. I also want to congratulate you for passing Computer Studies 1. This is not computer literacy, pardon me. This is computer studies. So I want to congratulate you for passing Computer Studies 1. That is why you are qualified now to write Computer Studies 2. This presentation is for Diploma in Education Secondary, DES COS22, Computer Studies 2. Computer Studies 2. It's not going to pose a problem for you here. Why do I say it's not going to pose a problem for you here? You already have done Computer Studies 1, which you passed. So the foundation is already there. So most of the things we are going to talk about, you have preliminary knowledge already. So we are going to build on the foundation that you have acquired in Computer Studies 1. This presentation is for April, August, and November 2020 examination. Meaning, I'm not going to give you a different presentation for your examination apart from this. We've decided to give only one presentation for the 3 examination so that everybody is given equal chance. So no preferential treatment like the April examination got a better presentation or the August got a better presentation. No. One presentation for everybody for that year, same standard of question, same standard of presentation. So don't call to ask this presentation, is it for only April? No, it's for throughout 2020. But in case you are not able to make it in 2020, this presentation is not valid for 2021. It's only valid for 2020. So if you, for example, you could not make it, then you want to repeat the course in 2021, you have to look forward to 2021 presentation. I'm sure those instructions are made very clear to you and you understand those instructions. Thank you. Let's sit down and listen in detail this presentation. I always have this slide in every of my presentation to let you know that this presentation is not a scope, but is a guide. What do I mean? I'm not here to give you topics where questions will come from. I'm not here to tell you that read only this area. Don't read only this area. No. I'm here to guide you for the whole of the examination. So don't call at the end of the examination and complain that Mr. Edo, how come I see a question in this topic, but you'd never mention it in your presentation? I'm not here to give you a scope. At IOL, we don't give scope. We don't give you areas of concentration. You concentrate on the entire module. All right? The course outline. Let's talk about that first. You have gone through Computer Studies 1. Now, this is Computer Studies 2. Here are your course outline. The course outline is already given to you. It was given to you upon your registration for this course. But in case you don't have the course outline, please free to request for it. Request for it from your course coordinator. In case you are not able to get the course outline, please get in touch with me. But I know very well the course outline is attached to your study guide. So look at your study guide, you will see the course outline. But in case you don't have the course outline, please, I beg you, contact your course coordinator or me to send you the course outline. Of what important is the course outline? The course outline tells you what you expected to know in this module. And in this module, upon completion of this module, you as the student, you should be able to translate algorithm. Remember, in Computer Study 1, I talked about algorithm. So here, you are expected to translate your algorithm into a full program. So if you prepare only for algorithm, then you have problem here. Here, you are expected to translate your algorithm into a computer program. That is why you must know your course outline. You must know what systems analysis is all about. You must know what your coursework is all about. You must know what the use of control and communication systems are all about. All these are in your course outline. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read the entire course outline. It's of no use reading what should be with you. It's a waste of time. Let's go into serious business. The examination covers the entire module. It covers the entire syllabus with questions selected from all the areas in your module. Meaning, do not read only do not read only Unit 1 or Unit 2 and you ignore the other ones, or you read Unit 3 and 4 and you ignore the other one. No, we cover everything. You'll be required to answer all the questions. Your questions are out of 140 marks. 140 marks. Again, for the purpose of emphasis, repeat, review your examination verbs. What does it mean to state? What does it mean to define? What does it mean to explain? What does it mean to demonstrate? What does it mean to discuss? It is one area that students often ignore. It is one area students often ignore. That is why I kept saying that students at times they know the answer but don't know how to put it properly because they ignore this area. When you pick your examination question, can you remember when you wrote Computer Studies 1? Your very first question you will find in my computer study question, according to the standard, according to the subject policy, the first question will have, it's going to be question 1, then you will see A, B, C, D, E, and F, with an instruction that says, explain the following computer terms and give an example where necessary and appropriate. Explain the following computer terms and give an example where it is necessary and appropriate. What are some of those computer terms? What do I mean? Your course outline, for example, let's assume, I can't remember vividly how many units are there, but let's take for an instance, it has unit 1 to 5. We pick these terms across the 5 units. We pick these terms across the entire units. So from Unit 1, I can pick 1 or 2. From Unit 2, I can pick 1 or 2. From Unit 3, 4, 5, D to all the units. So you see a question, for example, explain smart card, explain supercomputers, explain data lodging, top-down design, CLI. I want to say something here. If you remember that word, it's not a word. I call it an acronym, CLI. Whenever you see an acronym written like this, sorry, CLI, it is not written in small letter. It is not written in small letter. It is written in capital letter in uppercase, meaning it is not a word on its own. It's an acronym. It's not a word on its own. It is an acronym, meaning the C stands for a word, the L stands for a word, the I stands for a word. So it is command line interface. Command line interface. Now, how do you answer questions like this? First of all, you say CLI. First of all, give the meaning. You first of all write as command line interface. First of all, give the meaning of the acronym. Then you already convinced the examiner, yeah, the student knows what he's saying. She or he have already told me command line interface. After you've done that, then explain what command line interface is. After the explanation, give an example. For example, e.g., then you have your full mark. First, give the meaning of the acronym. After you have given the meaning of the acronym, explain what it is. After the explanation, what should you do? Again, give an example. Then you can have your full marks. Just as you see the other one, GUI, Graphical User Interface. These are just one or two examples. Just like the ALU, Arithmetic and Logic Unit, RAM, Random Access Memory. Those are the ones you will see everything is written in capital letter. Once you see that, please, my dear student, my beloved student, you should know that this is not just a word on its own, it's an acronym, and you must give the meaning. Take note of what I have written at the bottom of this slide. This is not a scope, just a guide. What do I mean? When I say you'll be asked to define certain computer terms, I am not telling you that these terms that I used here as an example are the ones you are going to see. No. So do not come after the examination and say, Mr. Edo, how come you mention a word that is not among the words in your slide? No. These are just an example to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. It is by no means to tell you that these are the words that you are going to see in the examination. Perhaps it is possible you can see maybe one or two of them, but it's no way guaranteed that these are the words that you will be asked to define. Do I make myself crystal clear? Yes. Let's continue with our discussion. Apart from this question one that says that you should explain this full meaning of this word and so forth, you're going to see other varieties of questions that say discuss, explain, differentiate, demonstrate, propose, and so forth. That is why I told you, familiarize yourself with these examination terms. You will need them when the time comes. Okay. What else is expected again when it comes to computer studies 2? There will be one or two practical questions. That is, in that examination, you are going to have a practical examination also. You are going to have a practical examination. But Mr. Edo, why should I have a practical examination? It's the subject assessment policy. So you will be given a computer in the examination. In computer study 2, you will be given a computer and a printer. There will be a practical question for you to do on the computer, and you are going to print it out. Remember, you are going to be a computer teacher. Nah? You cannot teach computer if you don't know how to work on a computer. So before we can certify you competent computer teacher at IOL, we must be convinced from your examination that this student knows the theory. We must be convinced that this student can work on computer, the practical. If you don't know how to work on computer, the practical, what are you going to teach your students? How are you going to give them work? Oh, but Mr. Edo, we know we can work on computer, we know. Yes, I'm not arguing. You are right. But prove it to me in the examination. So there will be a practical section. You'll be given a computer and a printer. Please, when you get the question, if a computer is not provided to you, please ask your supervisor of the examination center. It's part of the requirement. Now, what type of practicals are you going to have? You might be given question on Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Access. Spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel, or database, or both of them. So you have it done with clear instructions and print it out according to the instructions. So how will you be able to do that? My dear beloved student, start to practice on how to work on computers from today. You cannot teach at the high school computer studies if you don't know how to work on Excel or if you don't know how to work on Microsoft Access, a database. Okay, so don't be surprised when you see practical question in the examination. Good. Let's move on to another topic. I have selected one or two topics to discuss with you in this presentation, and one of them is data validation. You see, when you do your coursework, I'm going to discuss more on the coursework tomorrow or in the next presentation, which is all about learner support in computer studies. I'm going to talk more about coursework there. But there is this topic called data validation. What really is data validation? Data validation means using data that makes sense for the purpose of which it is being used for. Using data that makes sense or data that are sensible in the context of which it is being used for. What is Mr. Hedo saying? What do you mean by data that is sensible in the content of which they are being used for? Let's take for example. I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Let's say you are a teacher and you are going to enter your student marks. Valid marks or valid data are between 0 and 100. You will agree with me, a student cannot score less than 0, a student cannot score more than 100. So, any mark that is between 0 and 100, meaning it is sensible, it makes sense in this context. Which context? The examination context. So if you score 50, in this context, it makes sense. If you score 70, in this context, it makes sense. Examination, the context we are talking about says, this context is examination. If you score 0, a student can score 0, it makes sense. But let's go to an example. If you score 120, it does not make sense. It doesn't mean that 120 is not a number. But in this context, meaning in this situation of examination, it does not make sense because our marks should be between 0 and 100. That is what we mean in that definition. That data validation means using data that are sensible in the context of which they are being used or they are intended to be used for. You understand that now? Now, if you create a database, or you're working on Microsoft Excel, there are times you create some validation rules. So to guide you in what you are doing, so that you don't go beyond your scope of what you are doing. You don't go beyond your scope. So you create some validation rules. So we have different types of validation checks. I'm going to mention only two of them. For example, we have what is called range. Like the example that I've just used now, this is a range validation. That is, in the range validation is, you have the lowest or the lower limit and the highest limit. It can go less than this, it can go more than this. That is validation. I can say, those of you to be given admission, you must be between 10 and 20 years. That is a range. I can say it must be between 100 and 500. That is a range. So anything outside that range will be rejected by the system, meaning it is not valid. It's not as if it's not a number, but for the purpose of that system, it is not what? Valid. It has a range. Then we have other types of range, which is length validation. I'll give you one example. Let's talk about your cell phone number. How many numbers we have on our cell phone number? Let's look at mine. It's 08148044091. All MTC users will agree with me we have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 numbers. 10 numbers makes our cell phone number when it comes to MTC. So in terms of length validation, I will create my validation rule to accept 10 numbers. If you enter less than 10, the system complains. If you enter more than 10, the system complains, meaning it is not valid for that purpose. Length. So in the length validation, how short should it be? How long should it be? Then we also have type validation. Should it be numbers? Should it be alphabet? We have presence validation, meaning the cell or the record cannot be empty. Something must be there. I'm sure those of you, or most of us, let me just say those of you, most of us, when we create our profile, if it's some of these social media, for example, Facebook, Instagram, they will ask you, enter your date of birth, enter your name. If you click on submit, and you have not entered some of those things that are necessary, then it brings out these red stars. You see, these are required feed. There must be something there. It cannot be empty. So the person who created the system has created a validation that the user cannot leave this record or this cell empty. Okay, that's what we mean by present check. So there are different types of validation. Read more about them. I have equally selected other topics from the Computer Studies 2 course outline, like generic software. Please, you have to read more about it, about generic software. These are software that perform different tasks. It is not limited to one particular application. Let's take, for example, if you have something like Microsoft Excel, in Microsoft Excel, I can use it for multiplication as a teacher. I can use it to add my marks. At the same time, an accountant can also use it for accounting work. At the same time, an engineer can use it to calculate his tools without remodifying the software. It is generic. Okay, we also have integrated software. The word integrated means to combine together. To combine together. An example of integrated software is Microsoft Office. That is the reason why if you install your Microsoft Office, it comes with Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Publisher, and so forth. It has integrated, it has added together some application software into one. So an integrated software is a collection of software designed to work similar program. And a very good example is Microsoft Office. I also want to talk briefly about custom-made software. Custom-made software. Custom-made software are software that are designed for specific purpose, for specific person or specific organization. They can only be used for specific application. An example is a software that is designed to control traffic. You cannot use that software to monitor a patient's heartbeat in the hospital. No. A custom-made software. It's just from the word customize, when you customize something for a specific purpose. So, read also about custom-made software. There are other types of software that I want you to read about. Let's go back to another question. Not question, another area in Microsoft Excel now. Beloved students, when it comes to computer studies 2, questions from Microsoft Excel, questions from Microsoft Access, they are necessary and they will always be in any question. Whether April, August, or November examination, you will come across questions from Microsoft Excel. You will come across questions from Microsoft Excel. If these are very necessary questions, it is better we get prepared for it. Okay, how do you go about questions when it comes to Microsoft Excel? This is not the practical ones now. This is the theoretical ones. How will you know this is a Microsoft Excel question? Say you are going to say the word spreadsheet. Now here is a table done on Microsoft Excel. It comes with sample questions like this. How do you answer them? For example, name one type of formatting done on the above spreadsheet. Remember, when we say formatting, it means what has been done to some things like bold, underline. In the area of spreadsheet, if you go back to our spreadsheet here, if I'm to mention some of the formatting that has been done here, you will see that if you look at the total currency, the cost per item, all my currency are having 2 decimal places. That is one formatting that has been done. All the currency are in 2 decimal places. Another formatting that I can pick up here is the dollar sign is added. That is another formatting. Another formatting that I can pick out here is my heading, Atlantic Primary School Windhoek, is all in capital letter. It is bold. That is another type of formatting. Formatting is what is it that has been added to it to make it look different from the way it should have looked at. Something that makes it unusual from the way it should have looked at. Let's look at another sample question. How many columns are used in the spreadsheet? You count your columns. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 columns. You know, one problem that students used to have here is that they have the tendency of counting this one. This is not a column. These are roll numbers. Every column must have an alphabet. So you start from the A. Every column must have an alphabet. So there are 5 columns here. 5 columns, 10 rows. 5 columns, 10 rows. Row 1, 2, 3 to 10. 5 columns and 10 rows. Okay? Name a cell that contains a label. Name a cell that contains a label. What is a label in Microsoft Excel? A label is an alphabet. These are letters. A label is an alphabet. So if I go back to my table, any cell that has a label, I have something like B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, C3, D3, A1, all these, they contain labels. Then if a question says mention a cell that contains value, is any cell that has a number in it. Value is any cell that has a number in it. For example, C4, C5, D4, D5, E3, any cell where there is a value, where there is a number, is a cell that has a value. How do you write your cells? Please, you write your cell in this manner. If I'm going to say cell D2, you write it as D2, not 2D. This is wrong. This is wrong. D2. And if a question says mention one cell, please don't give me 103 of them or 2 of them. Only one you must give me. If you give me more than one, it means you are trying to permutate. You are trying to gamble. You are trying to see you are not very sure which one is right. If the question says, give me one, please listen to the instruction and give me only one. Do not give more than I ask you. Okay? Okay. Let's move and try another question on Microsoft Excel, the use of formulas. This is one area that students try to struggle a lot when it comes to the writing of formulas. Let's look at that question. Question 4,1,5. Write down the formula used to obtain the value 60 in cell E4. Write the formula that was used in cell E4. So what do? You go back to the table. Let's look at E4. This is E4. This is E4. How did we get this 60? Which formula was used? I used to advise my students to make it easy for you, or to make it easier for you, try to think about it mathematically, how it was done mathematically, then put it in Excel formula. How do you think, what do you think we use in getting this 60? What did we do? We multiply 12 by 5. 12 by 5 gives us 60. You see? But we are not asking for the numbers. We are asking for the formulas. So how do you write it? For you to write your formula, the first thing is equal sign. Every formula must have equal sign. So you put the equal sign. Then, remember we said 12 multiplied by 5. Ne? Please take note of our multiplication sign. This is our multiplication sign when it comes to computing. We said 12 multiplied by 5, that gave us 60. Now, where is this 12? Where is this 5? This 12 is in cell C4. Can you see that now? It's in cell 4. So instead of putting 12, I'll put C4. Then multiplication. Where is that 5? It's in cell D4. It's in cell D4. So I put D4 here. This is the formula I'm asking you. C4 multiplied by D4. C4 multiplied by D4. Do you understand? If you write a formula without an equal sign, the formula is automatically wrong. Let's look at one more example of the use of formula. If you look at question, let me pick question 4,1,6. Write down the formula that was used to obtain the value in cell E10. E10. Let's go back to E10. This is E10. E10. Think about it mathematically. How did we get this E10? You will agree with me that all these numbers were added together to give us this. But remember, you don't use the numbers. Use the name of the cells where the numbers are. So let's try now put it in the form of a formula in Excel. Remember what I told you? The first thing you say equal sign. Equal sign. Now there are two ways I'm going to use here when it comes to addition. I can use my function, which is called the sum. I can take there one by one. First of all, I'm going to use the sum function. So I say equal sum. You open a bracket. Sum is a function that is used in adding values together. Sum, open a bracket. Now let's go back to our table. We added 60 plus 168 plus 360 plus 540, 528, all these were added together. So to make it, when you use the sum function, you focus on the range. So the first value here is 60. That 60 is in cell E4. So I'm going to say E4 to, then you pick the last one, which is E6, E9. Please be very careful of something here. If you are not careful, you are going to say E1. No, this is serial number. This is the roll numbers is what we consider, not the serial number of my table. So it is E4 E4 to E9, not E6. The 6 here is just my serial number of my table. So E4 to E9, that is the formula. I can write it also this way, equal, taking it one by one, E4 plus, let's go back to our table, E4 plus E5 plus E6, okay, plus E7 plus E8 plus E9. I took them one by one from the table. But there's a danger with the second method. There's a big danger here. If I mixed up E5, then automatically everything will be wrong. If I omit E7, everything will be wrong. So I used to advise, or I do advise my student, please save yourself the stress by using the function. In the function, you pick only the first one and the last one. E4 to E9. Take my stress away from taking them one by one, because the danger of this one is if you omit one, if you forget to use one of them, then you are wrong. Let's leave Microsoft Excel and quickly go through Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access, you will be asked questions, how many feeds are there, how many records are there, and how to write a query, and how to interpret a query condition. So I'm going to demonstrate to you how to answer questions like this. Did you see that Microsoft Access also has a table, just like Microsoft Excel? Do you see that it has a table? How will you know this is Microsoft Access? You are going to see this word database. Database. In the case of Excel, you see spreadsheet. Here you see database. Now here is a database given to you with these following questions. Name with these following questions. Define the term relational database. I will skip those ones. I will go into the more practicable question. Relational database, you can easily define them. It's a database that has more than one table. You can define those ones on your own time. You can read what is a database and what is a relational database and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to talk more about that one today, about what is a relational database and a flat-based database. I'm going to focus strictly on other questions that are more practicable. How many feeds are in this database? How do you count your feeds? These are your feeds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 feeds. How many records? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 records. 7 feeds, okay? Your vertical lines, your feeds, then you have the horizontal lines, your records. In Microsoft Excel, you call them the columns. In Microsoft Access, we call them the feeds. Okay, let's look at question D. The following query was input. Number of hosts greater than 17, and, do you see that I emphasize that word? And remove host chicks equals yes. Using species only, write down which data item, it can be one, or items should be outputs. Now, there is a condition. Number of hosts greater than 17. And here is another condition. Remove host chicks should be yes. Now, who and who meets these two conditions? For a species to be qualified, that species must meet this condition and meet this condition. If the species meets only one condition, that species is not qualified because we are saying and. But if we use or, if a species meets only one condition, then that species is qualified. If we use or, if it meets only one condition, then that species is qualified. But if we use and, it must meet both conditions. If you remember, I told you something similar in Computer Studies 1. Now let us try and solve the question. Remember, number of hosts greater than 17 and remove chicks equal yes. Let's go back to our table. Number of hosts greater than 17. Greater than 17. Greater. Look at it very well. It says greater. Because students used to make mistake. There is a difference between greater and greater or equals to. Okay, this one is greater than 17. So, how do we do it? Let's look for the number of hosts greater than 17. Let's look at the conditions again. Number of hosts, yeah? So you look at your feed names. What do you do? Go and look at your feed names. Number of hosts. Can you see that now? Number of hosts. Now look for the number of hosts that is greater than 17. This is 1. But before I will pick this as an answer, before I will pick red-chested kutos species as one of my answer, I must also check that remove chick is also yes, because that is the second condition. Yes. So red, I will write red-chested cuckoos is one of the species. Then I have to check any other one greater than 17. Here is another one. Here is 17, but 17 is not greater than 17. 17 is equal to 17, so it is not right. So I check another one. This Digdris is 17, greater than 17. But let's see if the remove host is yes. It is yes. So Digdris is also 1. So you look for the species here. Look for the species that meet that condition. Okay? You can also be asked to write conditions in some situations. Because of time, I will not be able to demonstrate that now. Let's look at our last thing in our presentation, the writing of an algorithm. I will briefly demonstrate this quickly. Look at the question here. Write an algorithm. That is, we are going to translate your algorithm to a program now. Translating your algorithm to a program. A small airport handles 400 flights per day from 3 airlines. You can ask to write a program or an algorithm. Now, a small airport handles 400 flights per day from 3 airlines. Now, these are the flights: Fast Air, SwissJet, Night Air, with these codes. Each flight is identified by airline code, that is FASJKA, and 3 digits. For example, this flight, this is FA156. That is the name of the flight. Now, what is the question? Write an algorithm using pseudocode or otherwise which monitors the 400 flights into and out of the airport each day. The following input, processing, and output are all part of the process. So here is the situation. It's an airport. In a day, 400 flights comes, either landing and departing. 400 per day. And there are 3 airlines: First Air, SwissJet, and Night Air. This is how programming starts. The 3 airlines have different code. I love programming, my God. 3 of them have different codes. The Fast Air, the code is FA. The second flight, the second jet is SJ. Another aircraft has a code KA. What are you going to do as a programmer here? You should write a program that will tell us at the end of the day Number one, how many FA flight came in? How many flights of SJ came into that airport or departed or landed at the airport? How many flights of KA either departed or landed at the airport? So what are you going to do? Your algorithm or your program should be able to input all the flights. Your program should calculate the number of flights per day for each of the airlines. That is, if you talk about FA, how many of them came in today or departed? If you talk about SJ, how many of them came in or departed? If you talk about KA, how many of them came in or departed? At the end of the day, your algorithm or your program should be able to tell us the percentage for FA, the percentage for SJ, the percentage for KA. And if a wrong flight code is entered into the program should fish it out. What should you do? I will briefly summarize it because of time. First of all, do what is called initialization. Remember, we have FA, we have SJ. I've written it for you. I will just explain it briefly. We have KA as our flights. So let's initialize now. We say FA is equals to 0, meaning as of the time I'm starting my program, there is no flight that came in now for FA. Now, we go to the next one, SJ. For now, there is no flight for them. Initialization, meaning just started point. For now, KA, there is nobody. Remember, these are the codes for the flights. How many flights are going to come in? 400. Remember, in your looping programming, once you know the number of variables, you use, in your looping, you use things like for, do. Okay? So I will say for X is equals to 1 to 400, which means I'm going to expect 400 flights that day. For X equals to 1 to 400. Then I continue with the program. Now the program now should ask me for the flights. So I can say input letter code. Remember, these are the code. The computer asks me input letter code. Then I enter from the computer maybe FA. Now there should be condition for the computer to know how many of them is FA, how many of them is SJ, how many of them is KJ. So I will say if letter code, that is the letter code that the computer asks you to enter. If the letter code is FA, then FA is equals to FA plus 1. What does it mean? Remember, the computer asks you here, enter or input a letter code. Then you enter FA, for example. If the code you enter is FA, then FA is equal to FA plus 1. Why is it plus 1? Because FA was 0. Plus 1 in the sense that I've entered 1. Then you repeat that. If letter code is equals to SJ, if letter code is equals to FJ, then SJ is equals to SJ plus 1. You do the same thing for all the airline codes. Let's go back to our table where it is well written, because this table is not too clear now. Let's go back here. You say if letter code is KA, then KA is equals to KA plus 1. So as of this point, what is the program going to do? It will ask me to enter a code for an airline. Then a conditional statement in my program will check. If it is FA, then it's FA plus 1. FA plus 1. Remember, FA was 0. So if it's truly I enter FA, then FA is already increased by 1. Now FA is 1. If I enter another flight again, then I say FA. Remember, FA is already 1 plus 1 again. So this will keep an increment of the flight of all FAs. If I enter any code that is not either FA, SJ, or KA, if I enter any code that is not any of these codes, then the program will print wrong code. Then the program will print wrong code. At the end, it will calculate the percentage and print at the end. I want you to study this algorithm very well. Unfortunately, because of the length of this video presentation, my director is already calling my attention to my time to round off this presentation. I wish I really have time to really explain very much about this algorithm, this to you very well. I wish I really have time, but study it well. If you have problem understanding it, please call me. I will explain to you very much in detail. It's one area in this course outline that has so much love. Don't forget to read about your system analysis and other areas. I wish you all the best in your examination come 2020. Should you need more help or assistance, please free to call me on my number or email me. My name remains Edu Triumph, your tutor for computer studies too. Best of luck in your examination come 2020 in computer studies too. Thank you.